1984 was a weird year across Canada. The Liberals were voted out and replaced by that carpetbagger for the PCs, Brian Mulroney. You had a number of cable and television expansion. Basically, there was talk about, again, a fourth network, which ended up being Fox. The CBC and CTV were pretty well fully American programming 7 days a week. And of all things, possibly one of the greatest baseball players ever, if not the best ever, ended up being a Montreal Expo in a weird turn of events that we still call the Rose Affair. Now, for the 5 people out there that don't know this, yes, ladies and gentlemen, Pete Rose was a Montreal Expo for most of the 1984 season. Now, to lay the foundation of why Pete Rose became an Expo has to do with the 83 season. Now, Rose had the worst season of his career in 1983 with the Philadelphia Phillies, who ironically won a title with him 3 years before and were heading towards the World Series in 1983. Now, Rose at the time was 42 years old and batted only 245 with 121 hits and found himself benched during the latter part of the season when he appeared periodically to play and pinch hit. Rose did blossom as a pinch hitter with 8 hits and 21 at-bats for a 381 average. Now, manager Paul Owens, I don't know what he was thinking by benching Rose, and I think it happened to do with something with a clash of egos. Rose could back it up and Paul couldn't. Now, Rose bounced back during the postseason, batting .375 during the NLCS against the Dodgers, 6 for 16, and .312, 5 for 16 in the World Series against the Baltimore Orioles. Now, when Rose went 1 for 8 in the first 2 games in Baltimore and was benched for Game 3 in Philadelphia, he eventually grounded out to the pinch hitter in the inning appearance. Rose objected to manager Paul Owens' decision to bench him in a pregame interview with Howard Cosell of ABC Sports. Rose then bounced back with 4 hits in his last 7 at-bats in the remaining 2 games, though the Phillies lost the series to the Orioles 4-1. Well, what's significant for me, I watched the series, and with Joe Morgan and Tony Perez and a few other players, the Phillies were literally too old to knock off the Orioles, who had a young Cal Ripken, great pitching staff. Now, in the offseason, Rose was granted an unconditional release from the Phillies in, I think it was late October or November '83. Phillies management wanted to retain Rose for the '84 season, but he refused to accept a more limited playing role. Months later, he signed a 1-year contract with the Montreal Expos, who were loaded at the time with a ton of talent. Now, April 13, 1984, the 21st anniversary of his first career hit, Rose doubled off the Phillies' Jerry Koosman for his 4,000th career hit, becoming the second player in the 4,000 hit club, joining Ty Cobb. Rose played 95 games with the Expos that year with 72 hits and 23 RBIs while batting .259. Now, on August 15, 1984, he was traded back to the Reds for infielder Tom Lawless, where he became in short-term player manager. Now, published reports at the time and later on talking about the Pete Rose situation were quite negative of him going to Montreal, saying, he should have never moved to Montreal or whatever. But an article by Jason Foster of the sportingnews.com talked about the anniversary of seeing him in an Expo uniform in the 4,000 hit. And he said, you know what's still weird? Seeing Pete Rose in Expo's uniform. But we rode that as far as we could. There's tons of baseball cards and promotions with Pete Rose that draw a lot of interest, 37 years later. Now, this is called what you call a strange blip in history. Americans call it a minor chapter. I don't. It was just a talented player that was playing with the Expos. Now, a lot of people claimed that they forgot he ever played with the Expos. In Canada, we haven't forgot. Now, this was before, of course, he was banned in baseball in '89 for betting on games, allegedly, supposedly. But Montreal really welcomed him with open arms when he first came in. According to the article by Mr. Foster, Montreal still had faith and signed him to a 1-year deal. And make no mistake, Rose approached the '84 season with something to prove. When you mess with my pride, when you back me up against the wall with my pride, somebody's going to be in trouble. Rose said after his release from the Phillies, according to a Sporting News report at the time. Now, the Expos hope Rose still had enough left to spark the team the way he sparked the Reds and Phillies title squads early in his career. We seem to have lacked some of the qualities Pete has. President Joe McHale then told CSN. Maybe we can get a last breath from him. Well, not a last breath, but a couple of breaths out of him. We told Pete we're not interested in him in for attendance. We told him we're only interested in helping us to win. And that didn't happen. Now, he said, for those who think I can't play anymore, Montreal gave me a contract, and they're a pretty good team. There's nothing I can do about the day I was born. I wish people would forget how damned old I am. I don't feel old, I don't act old, and medical experts have told me my body isn't old. 2 years ago, I led the league in hits at age 40, and nobody said anything about being washed up. The people of Montreal should hope I get 202 hits, because if I do, I'll produce for this team. But again, according to the Sporting News article, that's not how it worked out. In that season, again, 259 average with 72 hits. Now, ironically, despite wanting Rose to provide the X factor to push them over the top, and despite his presence of 3 future Hall of Famers in the lineup, the '84 Expos provided the franchise's first losing season of the decade. Now again, when he moved on to Reds, made player manager, and the debate continued. But of course, for Expos fans, we have the beautiful '85 Donruss card to look at, which basically was after the trade, which is kind of weird, but it's kind of a blank back. And people are a lot saying, who's Tom Lawless? Well, Tom Lawless knows who he was, but it basically had to be a player to be determined. Tom Lawless was a good utility infielder, some outfield on occasion, but again, you can always say I was treated for Pete Rose, so that's his claim to fame. So ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're doing here on a Vintage Podcast, let us know. If you're a Pete Rose fan, tell us what you think of him in a Montreal jersey. I can tell he looked good. His long hair worked. Have a good day. Bye.